by Arkansas, for Arkansas. This is Inside Arkansas Live.
And welcome into Inside Arkansas Live here on this beautiful day here in the great state of Arkansas. I'm your host, John Neighbors, alongside Curtis Wilkerson and Andrew Ellis, and appreciate each and every one of you for making us part of your afternoon this afternoon. Going to have a lot of things to discuss here today on the show. Going to look at a little bit of the football situation, transfer portal, and what's the next step for Razorbacks and Sam Pittman, and trying to address some of the needs that they desperately need. We'll talk about that. We'll also get into some basketball, the ACC, SEC, whatever you want to call it, challenge. Officially comes to an end. The SEC was really dominant, except for two teams. Hate to see it, but we'll discuss some of that. We'll get into your SEC updates. We'll have an Arkansas update and keep you up to date on everything. But, folks, I know that many of you know about the news that came out this morning, to at least a lot of you woke up to this morning, about the passing of our very good friend, Bob Holt of the Arkansas Democrat Gazette. We know that he had been going through a health issue over the past few days, and we were hopeful, and we asked for everybody for his prayers and everything, and just wanted to say our thoughts and prayers still with his family and everything. Bob is a legend. And this has been a really tough day, a really tough morning to try to just, do your job and to make it work. But guys, I know Bob meant a lot to all of us, and it's just a sad day to see him go. It's just a really, really sad day and a tough day for us all.
Yeah, no doubt. Man, I don't know if I can do this. Just a really good man and a really good friend. And it's kind of cruel, honestly, how, just like a life that can impact so many lives can just be taken away with such suddenness. It's really sad. But, man, I'm so thankful for all the memories with Bob. Man, we had so many conversations, and it's been awesome to see the outpouring of support on social media from colleagues to people outside the state of Arkansas, all over the country who do this in the media, fans who just love that man, from hearing him on press conferences and everything. But traveling with that dude to NCAA tournaments and hearing all of his stories and having him in the front seat with me, driving all the way to Waco, Texas and back, and the dude was talking to me about Harry S. Truman and all kinds of stuff. But you just love listening to him, and so full of joy, kind man. And there's a reason why you're seeing, just the outpouring of support. It's because of the impact that he made on people, and love him and gonna miss him. And I'm always gonna appreciate him for, a time for us where, I've felt kind of unwelcome and unwanted by some of our own. And he never made me feel that way. And just always been a true friend, and love him to death, and gonna miss him. It's not gonna be the same without him.
Yeah, I mean, we knew it would be that way, man. Bob is a larger than life figure, man. He's just a guy that anyone who's ever met him has a story, has a Bob story, has some type of interaction with him that they'll never forget, because he made everyone feel that way. When you talk to him, you really feel like you're talking to someone who cares about you. And it's crazy because I can't even imagine what his phone book looked like, how many numbers, how many people he reaches out to, how many people he has that relationship with. It's honestly remarkable, man. And, something I've been saying a lot here these last couple of days is, like, I grew up, knowing I wanted to do this, knowing I wanted to be here and be in sports media. And so obviously with Bob Holt being who he was, I always looked up to him and admired Bob, and I knew his voice just like all you guys do. And I always kind of imagined in my head what I thought Bob Holt was like. And I have more love, respect, and admiration for him after having known him for a few years on a very personal level. Honestly, it's crazy because it's like, they always say never meet your heroes, but man, I'm really glad I got to meet my hero, and that I got to have a relationship with him. And for everybody that's, the listener, I know there's so many people that have poured out. And like you said, I mean, you see how the SEC putting out a statement, Ian Rappaport writing a story. Like, it's a big deal, man. And that speaks about how good of a guy he was and just the genuine nature of him. And for everyone that, didn't get a chance to meet him, that's like, oh, I don't know Bob, but I've heard him on 1,000 press conferences or whatever idea you have in your head of what Bob Holt is like, he is that. and he is better. Like, however, what you see is what you get, and what you see and what you get is just a freaking phenomenal guy. Like, it's hard to believe that someone so real and so authentic exists, man. And I'm really grateful that I've gotten to really know him over these last few years. And God, man, there's just so many memories, man. Like, I just remember being nervous. In hindsight, it's crazy, and you guys will laugh at this. Like, I was nervous to introduce myself to Bob just about 3.5 years ago. And in hindsight, I'm like, why the hell would I ever have been nervous? Like, of course, Bob would welcome me with open arms. And he used to always call me, ever since I told him my first name was Pierce, he's called me Pierce every time I see him. And he always talks about my hair, and he's always like, dude, you got to cut that hair. Well, I can never cut this hair now, man. I'm not going to be able to do it, man. Now without Bob hassling me about it. But man, it's just been so cool to read all the stories and see everyone share their different interactions with him, their perspective. And he's just one of those guys that it's crazy to see how many people he touched. Not only just personally talking, but like how many millions of people know him and have gravitated to him and know his voice, know his face. He's a guy that he's a legend that will live forever, man.
Man, and I thought I was like, okay, I'm ready for this. I'm ready to take it on, because it's been like this for me all morning, and so it just shows you the impact that he's had on so many people and in us. We, Curtis, you talk about traveling with him. That was some of the best moments and memories I have in my career, is going to those NCAA tournament games with you and with Scotty and with Bob. Like that was us. I posted a picture of us 4 out in Vegas, because we just always knew together, us, there'll be some other media members that would show up if they could and everything, but we knew that us 4 were always going to be at those games. And I also remember me and Bob were going to be the only ones at the dadgum SEC baseball tournament, because nobody else wanted to go. And I didn't want to go.
Own, buddy.
Yeah. And it's like, now, but those were just so many moments. And, I've been trying to retweet and share all the great videos, man, like the Daryl Macon interactions, the Kamani Johnson interactions, the Calipari interactions, the Chris Beard interactions. It was always about interactions with Bob. It wasn't Bob saying anything by himself. It was the interactions that he had with people. And that's when you're somebody special that touches a lot of different lives, is when that's what people know you for and what remember you by and what they loved about you. Is not what you said, not what you did, but how you interacted with real people in real positions. And so I love that guy so much, man. I did. And, I don't have many friends, like close friends, but I considered him a close friend. That's why I always loved hanging out with him, man. That's why I always loved having him at the Leroy. And that's why it was just so great when he was around, because, you could talk about anything. He'd start talking about the transfer portal needs and football, and 5 minutes later, you're talking about the Civil War. I mean, it was just, you never knew what direction it was going to go, and it was constantly entertaining. And I think the toughest thing for me, guys, is, man, swore I wouldn't do this. Toughest thing for me is just not getting able to chance to say goodbye to him. But I know he's in a better spot now. But again, I can't just tell you how awesome he was. And if you never had him in person, if you ever talked to him in person, you missed out, because there was nobody more genuine, more friendly, more caring, more interesting, and also interested in you. He remembered things. I mean, the guy still apologized to me every time I saw him because he accused me of being an alcoholic one time. I mean, it was just because I bought a round of beers, 11 beers for the group, and he thought those were mine. He's like, man, he's like, John, you may have a problem. Like, just random funny things like that, man, that really stood out. But
John, it wasn't that crazy of an accusation. We got.
It's true. Yeah, it wasn't too crazy for that. But man, it's just it's been a tough day. But we are going to do our best to carry on. We're going to do our best to talk about the things going on in Razorback land. And we appreciate all of you tuning in and hanging out with us, and just, bear with us a little bit. Sometimes it's tough, and anytime you lose somebody, but especially somebody as special as Bob. So, but we appreciate him and again, we'll keep anybody updated on any details for any sort of, because people have asked me how they can help out or if there's any sort of donations they can give, whatever. But we'll keep you updated on all of that and make that happen for you.
Yep.
So, okay. All right. Well, we can move on to the stuff, to the good stuff, to the stuff that people want to talk about. The transfer portal is now upon us right now for the Razorbacks and for all of college football. We did a signing day yesterday, which, good grief, Andrew and Curtis were on a live stream for about half of their life yesterday, it seemed like. But it was a pretty, if you haven't missed any of our signing day coverage, you can go back and check it out. We won't rehash it too much. But there were some things that happened, like Isaiah Satania hitting into the portal, which we also did a live stream for, which was huge and a big news. But that's kind of the next page now. And for the Razorbacks, it's a matter of, okay, you did a little bit better in your high school recruiting class than you thought you would, or at least most people thought you would. Now it's time to really showcase and to really show how good your NIL is, how good you are at putting this team together, how good you are for the roster, because portal season is crucial right now for the Razorback football team and for Sam Pittman.
Yeah, it is. Although I was told very emphatically by about 85% of the people in my mentions that Isaiah Satania leaving is just it's just a non-factor, non-issue, not an SEC receiver, not a good football player, and won't be missed. So from that standpoint, I thought that wide receiver had moved up on the list of needs. It hasn't. Just another guy out the door there, apparently. But no, in all seriousness, I'm not exaggerating about that. Like my mentions were wild because when Satania hit the portal, I said, that's a big ouch. And it was just like, nah, no, can't catch, go somewhere and fumble punts elsewhere. And I was like, wow, this is a wild reaction, man, because it's a returning starter, for your team, and a guy who I thought, he didn't become like an all-world receiver, but man, it was his best year by far, and certainly your most proven producer coming back. So I think it's a big deal, and it just kind of heightens what they need to do there. But yeah, doing a little bit better in the high school class, cool, that's great. But it's kind of like we talked about on Inside Arkansas Live, Andrew. That's not the needle mover. The way for them to do that is to go out and attack this transfer portal and upgrade their talent. And one of the things we said was part of that is retaining as many of your good players as you can. So when you bring in the studs, you're adding to instead of replacing. And now they have to replace Satania. So it becomes a little bit more complicated.
Yeah, Curtis, I was stunned by that. Because I had a lot of people that were also reaching out to me that were like, dude, why are y'all acting like Isaiah Satania was good? Why, what's going on there? Look, okay, fair enough. Like we're not saying Isaiah Satania is like a world beater and that it's more about, Arkansas lost. It's not like he put up Andrew Armstrong level of production, but his departure, I feel like it's more about what it represents and how Arkansas now, I mean, you read off the numbers yesterday, Curtis, for those that missed it, it was like 14 catches on the entire roster coming back now. I mean, Jordan Anthony has 8 receptions for like 95 yards or something like that. He's your leading returning receiver. There's just a lot of unproven production. Now, obviously, Arkansas is going to go out and add guys, but I just felt like having a guy who had been in your system for a few years, had been taking strides, maybe not the strides that we had hoped. We all kind of thought that, hey, by the time he was a redshirt sophomore, he'd be a real impact playmaker, which, I mean, he made a play that impacted that Auburn game. I mean, he pretty much won that Auburn game for Arkansas with that huge play. We got to see a lot of glimpses of what he could bring to the table. So, look, it's not like we're saying Arkansas lost someone, this all-world talent. But again, it just would have been nice to have someone like that. And pretty much all the ideas of we thought, hey, what can this offense look like next year with Taylor Green returning, some of the O-line? Isaiah Satania was kind of always a part of that. And so now, again, it just adds more pressure into what Arkansas is going to have to add in the portal. I mean, I feel like the title for the stream, Arkansas has to have the best portal season ever. I feel like it fits, man. Like we've been saying it. We've been kind of having our eyes on the portal this whole time. We knew there was going to be a lot of pressure. This is a high-stakes month for Arkansas where they're going to really have to make some moves filling out this roster. You would have liked to have an experienced receiver in your back pocket and your punt returner, which I know everybody hates that he muffed that punt against Oklahoma State, but I thought we had agreed to blame Scott Fountain for that, but whatever. But again, and we talked a lot about signing day yesterday, and I enjoyed talking about it. We like talking about the impact and kind of looking ahead to the future, but the whole time I couldn't help myself from thinking none of this matters for this year's team. And if this year's team sucks, it really doesn't matter moving forward because a lot of these guys aren't going to be on the roster. So like that was kind of the dark cloud hanging over signing day, is that none of it really matters because these guys aren't going to impact 2025. You know who would have been Isaiah Satania. And again, I'm not going to we'll move on from Isaiah Satania. I promise you, we will. We're done talking about him. We get it. You guys think he sucks. But again, it's just when you're in this position as Arkansas is in, you need all the proven production, all the veteran presence you can have, and losing a guy like that hurts. And so, again, all eyes are going to be on the portal. There's a lot of pressure on this Arkansas coaching staff. We'll see if they can get it done.
Lose your backup quarterback, burn the program down, lose your starting receiver. Who cares? Shut up, move on. That's kind of the message that's been delivered. So.
Great logic.
At least they're going to get a shorter, slower, less proven version of him in the portal here soon, is from what we're told. So,
and act like it's a freaking, just a home run. That's where we're at now. But hey, whatever.
Oh, you know how, guys? I'm just preparing everybody. If Arkansas gets a wide receiver from like some D3 school or something like that, people are immediately going to be like, Andrew Armstrong. You went to Texas A&M Commerce. Look at that. It's so. That's what I am. I'm going to laugh about, is if they're going to be putting that out there, and then people are just going to immediately be like, "Oh, Andrew Armstrong was this. Andrew Armstrong was this." Okay, those are the rarities. It's the same thing with the John Ridgeway deal. And if you get a D lineman or whatever, because Anton Junkaj was supposed to be that, to some, that type of player. Not saying he's trash, but it's just like he didn't live up to that expectation. So, you got to always just pump the brakes on trying to make previous comparisons to any type of portal additions, especially right now. And in fact, we use that for our Alumni Hall question of the day, presented by Alumni Hall. Check them out at alumnihall.com, folks, or if you can shop them in store at 3417 North College Avenue. The #1 Razorback shopping experience, all the great Razorback apparel for men, women, and kids, everything right there at Alumni Hall. Right there on alumnihall.com, as well as 3417 North College Avenue. Simply ask the nation here, what is the biggest position need for the Razorbacks out of the transfer portal, just in everyone's opinion. And as of right now, 40% of you say wide receiver is the #1 priority. 24% of you say defensive back. 20% of you say defensive lineman, and 17% of you said other, which, according to the list, is overwhelmingly offensive line, is what people have said. So
sounds to me like you have a lot of things you really need.
Important positions.
It's been really difficult for me to try to nail down what the biggest need is. It really has. I think we talked about it during our signing day thing. Maybe I was leaning defensive line, but then by the time I finished my spiel, I was like, but yeah, I don't even know if they're going to have a starting corner. So maybe secondary. And then Satania happened. I was like, all right, receiver moves to the top. And then I was told I was an idiot. So I really don't know. They have a lot of really important needs to fill. I'm not really sure I could prioritize it, because right now here in this very moment, I'm thinking about that defensive line. I'm going, man, that's just trenches, man. In the SEC, I don't know. They got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, so it's weird. As of yesterday, and look, again, guys, I'm going to reiterate it. It's not that we think Isaiah Satania was like a star, but just the fact that you're losing your one proven receiver changes it a little bit for me. The thing with the D line, so let's talk about it for a second. You've got Nico Davier, Cam Ball, Ian Giffard, and Quincy Rhodes, your top 4 guys returning. I guess by default, that's your starting defensive line. I think that alone would be a probably bottom 4 or 5 D line in the SEC in terms of starters. But you at least have guys that it's like you see the makings of the core of your defensive line. They're going to have to add a ton of guys, but I feel like at least you have some type of semblance of stability returning there. Now, again, you're going to need way more than 4. You're going to need probably 9 or 10. So we'll see how they go about developing. But at receiver, you literally do not have you have Jordan Anthony, who literally is a track athlete, who has caught some passes, and he's very fast. We get all that, but you really don't have anything to even build around. You're starting from completely scratch at the receiver room. So I do think receiver is ultimately going to be the biggest position of need. And frankly, I think Arkansas has to have a good receiving core to really make the moves that they want to make next year. It's going to be a lot of pressure on this offense to really take that next step forward. Because look, you're running it back with your quarterback. You're running it back with your OC. You're running it back with a lot of the O-line. I know everyone was like, well, what about the O-line? we all agree that like they're going to maybe add a couple pieces there, but like it's not going to be an all new starting offensive line that they're going to rebuild through the transfer portal. They tried that last year and y'all hated that too. So they're going to try just rebuild and develop with the guys that they have. I think the receiver has to be like the number one, like all eyes on it, just because one, you have zero pieces returning. And I think there's more pressure. Like Arkansas had a pretty average D line this year. And I didn't think like it cost them a ton of games. I feel like the depth was an issue, but like, it's not like Arkansas is dependent on their D line to win them games. Arkansas, I feel like, is going to be dependent on their receivers to win them games next year. It would be a bigger deal if Arkansas couldn't find any receiving options than if they couldn't find a ton of high level defensive linemen, because they really haven't had a ton throughout the last few years anyway.
I like this comment here from Garrett. He says, saying Satania is mid is saying that every valuable college football player is mid. Unless you are a rare superstar / next level player in college, you are like Satania, which is good and valuable, which is 100% facts. Like that is so true. It is. Sometimes people just think, oh, well, you just need 3 Traylon Burks out there and lining up. It's like, dude, it's just not. That doesn't exist. That's just not a thing. People will reference the great wide receiver core of Jarius Wright, Joe Adams, Greg Childs. That's once in a generation, lifetime type of group. Most of the time, you're going to have the Traylon Burks and then a couple of guys like Warren Thompson or what was the guy's name? Number 10, Davion Warren out there. It's just, and it's fine and it can work. But this idea that you're just going to throw out 3 NFL wide receiver caliber guys on a passing group is just nonsense. It just doesn't exist.
Yeah, I'll piggyback off what you said there with another chat from Petrino Durrell, attorney at law. Says Satania is not a bad player, but he is replaceable. And I think we all agree with that. But if, kind of like what we've been talking about here, ideally, that's not something you have to replace. It's that production is something at the bare minimum that you can pencil in and then add to it. I think that's kind of where we're coming at.
I don't know why that is so hard for people to grasp. Yes, he's absolutely replaceable. So is Nico Davier. So is Cam Ball. Hell, so is Xavier Sori. All these guys are replaceable, but you didn't have to replace them. You didn't have to replace Isaiah Satania, because that's the thing. Even if you keep Satania, you were still going to need 2-3 receivers minimum. Now you just add on to it. And look, the idea that like, oh yeah, he's replaceable, we'll just find someone better in the portal. You probably will. In all likelihood, Arkansas will bring in at least 1, maybe 2 receivers who are more proven and more, ahead of schedule than Satania. But the odds are that you're going to find like 3 guys better than that. Like it's really going to be tough. And again, it's not that he's irreplaceable, but you don't want to have to replace a guy that you didn't have to replace. And so again, it's like there's a lot of guys on the roster you could go on through. Like for instance, if Nico Davier transfers, we're going to have a similar reaction where we're like, oh, damn, that's a tough blow, because we were counting him as a starting defensive lineman, someone they didn't have to replace, and now they do. It's not like one of those things where Arkansas can't find someone better than Satania. In all likelihood, they will. But again, you just wanted to have some semblance of stability there. And look, now you got to replace your punt returner as well. I guess you better keep Bryce Stevens.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny, too, because I know you guys remember this. Remember when Arkansas lost Mike Woods and how people were pissed about that? And it was like a big deal. Remember when Arkansas lost Ketron Jackson and people were pissed and like that was a big deal? Why is Isaiah Satania not getting the same treatment? Like, that's another thing I don't understand, too. Is it because you felt like he was overhyped and he never lived up to it? Is it because you just are pissed at everything in life and you just want everything to be terrible and crappy? I don't know, but that's something I remember back to. Is like, okay, you guys were pissed when Ketron Jackson left. You were pissed when Michael Woods left, but yet Isaiah Satania, who's given you, I guess, 2 years of play and was really solid, now suddenly, whatever, don't need him. Anything.
The same fan base told us that Paul sucked last year whenever he left. And that's, we can pull up the receipts. The same fan base was like, oh, who cares about Paul? He wasn't that good anyway. Freaking butt-kiss finalist. And people were kind of brushing off that one. Now, Arkansas was able to replace the linebackers and, kind of hold it together. But it's just crazy how, like, we overhype guys when they're on campus. And then when they leave, it's like, actually, they sucked.
Yeah. It's just how people are sometimes. And I get it. You try to justify your own feelings on it. But, like Ryan says, Isaiah Satania was just a track athlete, honestly.
That's what Jordan Anthony is. And now that's your wide receiver 1.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Track athletes are pretty good. And Isaiah could catch the ball. It wasn't like Tyrone Broden where he was dropping a lot.
Track elite, not a football player. Should have been a DB, not a receiver. I've heard it all in the last 16 hours.
Just don't get it, man.
It's just wild, man. And like, look, again, I feel weird for continuing to say this, but it's like it's not even really about how good Isaiah Satania is. It's just like, why would you want to have to replace the one returning piece you have?
Yeah, go with, like you said, Andrew. If you have established, experienced guys that have proven themselves to be able to be productive on your team and in the SEC, is that not something you would want to keep as long as possible? I feel like it'd be a good thing. Absolutely a good thing. Jeff does ask this question, which I thought was interesting too. He says, John, Curtis, and Andrew, have y'all heard anything about Jaquindon Jackson? Heard yesterday on the radio that he has potential to come back for a 6th season. You heard it here, obviously, because we talked about that.
I mean, we did talk about it yesterday. And yeah, we do believe that he has the option because he only played 3 games in 2020. That was his COVID year and a redshirt year. So he's kind of got 2 of those. The only thing is we are highly, 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 highly skeptical that he has any desire to play college football again. When you're a running back, you only have so many, bullets left. You can only take so many hits. And so I think he would like to go ahead and get the ball rolling on his NFL career. And who knows if he'll be drafted or not. I think he's going to be a guy that at the bare minimum is going to have a chance to be an undrafted free agent, get invited to an OTA, minicamp, something like that. And I think he should probably go ahead and do that. He had a solid enough year, and he's had a lot of injuries. So I don't think he wants to risk it unless Arkansas really drops a bag. So I guess, yes, he does have the option, but I'm highly skeptical that he will want to return.
I think that was the key there towards the end of that statement, Andrew. And he said, maybe it was during camp or early in the season, he was pretty open about, like, this is kind of my last go around. That was the plan. I don't think he planned on having such an injury riddled season. I know he dealt with injuries at Utah too. And so, yeah, he's going to have to kind of weigh his stock a little bit. It makes a lot of sense for a running back to not do the 5th or 6th year thing or whatever it is and just go and try to start your pro career. And it's probably going to be a grind for him because I don't know where he would be drafted if he would at all, just kind of given some of that injury stuff. Arkansas, I'm sure they would probably like to have him back, but it does come down to that bag because you're going to have to really pay up if you want to get him back. And then you got to look at the rest of the room, right? What's going to happen with Braylon Russell, Yeah. Because if you lose him, you might be more enticed to say, hey, you know what? We better keep our bag and see if we can keep him and convince him to stick around for another year. If you get confirmation from him coming back, you might be a little more willing to say, hey, we'd like to have you back, but we're not gonna double your salary or whatever the hell we're gonna call it nowadays, and maybe you should just start the next chapter. So it's not as simple as, does Jackson want to come back or not, or does Arkansas want him back or not? We got to consider all the financials to it as well.
Well, and also I'll ask you guys this question: if it came down to one or the other, who would you rather have back next year, Jaquindon Jackson or Braylon Russell?
Braylon Russell.
Probably Braylon, just simply because he's a freshman. There's room to grow. And honestly, I say this like I'm, not acting like I'm the most unselfish guy in the world or anything, but like just for Jaquindon Jackson personally, I would like to see him go play in the NFL, get the ball rolling, see if he can get on a 53-man roster and kind of start that chapter of his life. John, I know you went to college for 33 years, but not everyone wants to do that. I'd like to see him move on. I will say this though, guys. I think there is a very real chance that Arkansas goes after a very proven running back in the transfer portal. And when I say go after, I think like they will be in the mix for, I know that the ULM running back, Ahmad Hardy, is a popular name. I think he was the Sun Belt Freshman of the Year or something like that, had like 1,300 yards. He's in the portal, and there's some smoke. So we'll see. But I think that kind of lets you know that they're kind of assuming that the staff at least is assuming that Jaquindon Jackson is moving on. And we'll see if they're able to keep Russell. I'm actually surprised I haven't seen a ton of buzz regarding Russell wanting to leave. As much as we've kind of thought all year, this is a guy they might lose. We'll see. There's still plenty of offseason left, but it doesn't seem as much of a foregone conclusion as it maybe did a month ago.
Yeah, I listen, I take them both back, obviously. Getting one of them I think is crucial, though. I think we can agree that. You got to get either Braylon Russell or Jaquindon Jackson back if the options are there. But, man, I agree with you guys on Braylon Russell, but when Jaquindon Jackson was fully healthy, man, he was so fun to watch.
Really good.
He was – maybe have cost him as a physicality of why he got so banged up. But, man, then that first few games of the season, that dude was unstoppable. Breaking tackles, running over dudes. He had swagger to him. I mean,
Well,
I'd love to see him back another year.
and a lot of blame could be thrown around as to why Andrew Armstrong only had 1 touchdown reception this year. It's because Jaquindon Jackson is a touchdown merchant.
What do you have?
I
15?
mean, it was unreal. Yeah, and he only played in half the games. What do you have, 9 through 3 games or something stupid like that? I mean,
That's absurd.
I mean, dude, if he plays in the bowl game, which I have no idea if he's going to or not, he'll be 1,000-yard back. Like, was this the most quiet 1,000-yard rushing season of all time? Which again, we kind of felt like was the case preseason that he would have a chance to do it. He missed some games, missed some time, was banged up throughout the entire year, and is still probably going to end up with 1,000 yards. Like that's a legitimate piece.
Yeah, it'd remind me of almost what was it? I guess Michael Smith. I know you guys remember him that year, that Bobby Petrino's first year where he had 1,000 yards. People were kind of like, oh yeah, he did. Yeah, that's right, he did have 1,000 yards. It was almost like so forgettable because it's so crazy that they would think that way. But yeah, it would be that way with Jaquindon Jackson. Do you guys think he plays in the ball game, regardless of his decision?
I think he does, simply because I don't think he's a surefire draft pick. In which, like, Andrew Armstrong, I feel like is a surefire draft pick, whether it's 3rd, 4th, 5th round, whatever. I think Jaquindon Jackson going out there and getting 130 in the bowl game or whatever could help, maybe catch some passes. I think that's one thing that helped him this year. He caught, I don't know how many passes he ended up catching, 12, 13 or whatever, but he like doubled his career output in the receiving department. I think it would help him if he would go out there and have a nice performance, but you also don't want to risk injury. So like, we'll see.
Yeah, I don't know how much NFL scouts are going to be tuned into the Birmingham Bowl. Maybe they will be, but I feel you. To me, it's all about how healthy. Does he plan on coming back or not? Like if he's planning on, even if it's like okay, I'm going to the NFL draft or I'm coming back to Arkansas kind of deal. If it's even within the realm of possibility he's going to come back, then maybe he plays. But it's all about the injury for me. I mean, he's been banged up all year. Even when he's been getting carries in the last couple games, it's like, oh yeah, he's more of a situational back now. Oh yeah, they really weren't looking to use him much in the snow against Missouri, but DeBinion got hurt and they're allergic to Braylon Russell, so they're going to give it to him 20 times. So I just don't know. Like, he's got to consider that too. What, like, the pros and cons of, if I go get 170 yards against I don't know, Tulane or something in the Birmingham Bowl, does that do more for me than risking injury because I need to be 100% healthy for the combine? So it's I think it's 50-50 personally.
Well, I was just looking at his numbers for, you mentioned touchdowns in this season. He's got 15. I'm not saying he will do this, but guys, if he got 3 touchdowns in the bowl game, 3 rushing touchdowns in the bowl game, he would be second in Razorback history of rushing touchdowns in a single season. Second.
It's insane.
Like, yeah. I mean, you're talking, he would have more rushing touchdowns in a season. All he needs is 2 more. If he one more, he ties Darren McFadden. If he gets 2, he surpasses Darren McFadden for the most rushing touchdowns in a single season. Madre Hill in 95 had 6 rushing touchdowns in a single game, and that dude only had 15. So you're talking about, the Andrew Armstrong to Jaquindon Jackson discrepancy. There it is. That's where a lot of the touchdowns ended up going. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Jaquindon Jackson and a lot of these players too that are still up in the air, because I don't think anybody would have guessed that Isaiah Satania was going to leave, but here he is. So you never know what's going to happen. But Hogs on the Hill says, "Hey guys, how does it affect the fan base if Russell leaves?" Tried to emphasize it on my show yesterday, but he's extremely talented Arkansas kid that you don't want to let get away.
Based on recent vibes of similar situations, I'd say it doesn't affect the fan base at all. They'll just say meh and move on.
Yeah. I was going to say, based on the information we've got in the last 24 hours, I'd say this fan base is going to be wishing to drive them to the airport. I don't think, I mean, look, it's so weird because you hear the same fan base bitch and moan about, oh, we need to bring in more in-state guys, blah, blah, blah. And then you get like a couple decent in-state young pieces and then they leave and they're like, out of here. Yeah, you're out of here, loser. I don't think this fan base is going to lose one bit of sleep over losing Braylon Russell. But and also, again, it's not like the most stunning thing. It'd be one thing if he were like a freshman All-American who was like all hog and like really like the whole time you knew, you felt great about him. I think the writing is kind of on the wall, which would make it easier to accept. And I mean, he's not like the most proven player of all time. What do you have, like 250, 300 yards or whatever? It would sting a little bit. But I also, again, I think like, if Arkansas goes out there and gets a bell cow in the portal, then I don't think it's going to this fan base is going to care too much, frankly.
Or maybe they will freak out. Maybe it's the the thought of what you could be effect, like Malachi Singleton. That's why there was so much outrage over him leaving, because you get a small sample size and you think that he might be the next big thing. Same thing with Braylon Russell. He has a big game against Mississippi State, so everybody's like, oh yeah, he's up next, he's the truth, and they freak out about it, as opposed to the actual long-term proven production on the field.
That's actually a good point. I think that's also why fans are so quick to be like, yeah, screw Isaiah Stanley. Let's just go get a guy out of the portal. Let's just go get a guy out of the portal, because you don't know. You haven't seen that. And so what hasn't been is always a lot more intriguing. And so, I think that's definitely a factor.
Well, like Jeff asked the question, he's like, I may have missed it, but is there any update on Rashad Dubinian's injury? Speaking of running backs in the situation there.
No, not to my knowledge. And we also haven't got to talk to Sam Pittman yet, which he wasn't feeling up to doing his presser yesterday. They said they were going to reschedule that soon. My assumption was that soon would mean maybe today or tomorrow, but I don't think we've gotten anything about that just yet. I imagine that'll be one of the questions that is asked of him whenever we get to talk to him.
Yeah, I'd certainly like to hear from the head coach of the program. But seriously, we sympathize with the surgery and all that. But yeah, it's tough to get updates because we just haven't been able to talk to people inside the program.
Yeah, because here's the thing: if I'm not trying to say one way or the other, but if the longer he waits, there will be some moves in the portal of players leaving, which he doesn't want to talk about that, but he's going to get asked. So it's almost like, hey, you need to get out there in front of it as quickly as possible, so that way you're not constantly being barraged about, okay, I don't care about your class. What happened? What's with Isaiah Satanian? What's he leaving for? What about this player that decided to bounce out? What's going on here? So it's almost like, hey, you want to get ahead of this a little bit before people have the opportunity to ask you some questions about some of the players leaving, which we know he doesn't want to do. Also, Zach is saying, give me McRoy from Oregon, please, please, please.
Okay,
nice.
Isn't that the offensive lineman that's like 380 pounds or whatever, or the big lineman? I think so. He was a freshman at Oregon this year. I don't know how much he played, but I know Arkansas recruited him pretty hard. I think we're talking about the same guy here, and he's just freaking enormous.
Jaquan McRoy, is that right?
Maybe that's right. Yeah,
I think it is. Yeah,
mountain of a man. So sign me up for anybody that big, dude. I mean, come on.
6'8", 375. Yeah, it's decent sized.
I like the guys that you can look at and you don't really have to explain it. Like you look at Landon Jackson, you don't have to explain. No, this guy's a good defensive end. It's like you just look at him and you see this guy seems like he fits that.
I love this from Ty Street. Says, hell, just send Bobby out for a presser. That would be so funny. That would be so funny. Bobby having to like, hey, so what do you make of the defensive lineman that you guys got to the portal?
Yeah,
well, I'll tell you this, guys. He's a really good player. We were recruiting him a lot, and we were expecting big things out of him. We really like him as a kid, and we're going to do whatever we can to make it work with him.
Well,
it's funny that we started this week wondering if Bobby Petrino was even going to be employed anymore, and then all of a sudden it's like now he's got to sit out there and represent the program.
Let's go ahead and make this distinction now. Bobby Petrino is not to Sam Pittman what Kenny Payne is to John Calipari. He will not be wheeled out to those press conferences that Pittman doesn't want to do.
Well, yeah, he is a Kenny Payne because he's a former Louisville head coach that's working under a legendary head coach.
That is the parallel. Yeah, that's it.
Could we do the power rankings of the coaches that would be most likely to be told and would do the press conference for Pittman? I think Travis Williams would be number one to be wheeled out. After that, I think Scott Fountain would be number two. Like they'd roll it out there.
Yeah.
Maybe
those are both good. I mean, a lot of those guys are pretty well spoken there. Scott Fountain's the associate head, right?
That's right.
Oh yeah.
So
we're talking about future interim head coach Scott Fountain.
Yeah, exactly, man.
If he ever becomes the interim, that would have to be the first special teams interim head coach, right? Or at least one of them.
It makes sense.
Arkansas actually hired one for an entire season one time.
That's true. It's true. He was
the same results.
Scott Fountain could be the best special teams to head coach of all time at Arkansas.
Yeah. I just wish I had on my little soundboard here just the Vito Calvaruso said, "Dang it, Scott!" Just because he was doing his impersonation of Sam Pittman, because that's just so obvious to use in different situations. But yeah, we'll see whenever that press conference happens. We'll keep you updated on it, and we'll try to have some news from that whenever that ends up being. So, portal season still underway. Also, it's not major as in surprising, but we can go ahead and use it as far as your Arkansas update presented by Davis and Garrett Insurance, your independent auto owners insurance agency, securing what matters the most. Was announced late last night. Landon Jackson officially has declared for the NFL draft. Put out this statement on Twitter and social media. It says, thank you, Razorbacks. First, I would like to thank God, as without him, none of this would be possible. Second, I'd like to thank my family, friends, and all, of course, my wife. They all have motivated me beyond measure. I'd also like to thank my coaches and teammates for molding me into the player and the man I am today. Lastly, I'd like to thank all the Razorback fans for taking me in and treating me like family. Attending Arkansas was one of the best decisions I ever made. I have grown off the field just as much as I have developed on it. I have had the opportunity to play for some of the best coaches anybody can ask for. After talking with my family, I'm excited to announce that I will be fulfilling my lifelong dream of entering into the 2025 NFL Draft, Landon Jackson. So, no surprise, but it is official. Nobody be like, I'm hearing, they could get him back. Nope, he's gone. He's moving on. That's all you need to hear about it.
Yeah, good for him. Great guy. Looking forward to watching him on Sundays. Eric Gregory, which I don't think he had any option of coming back after, I don't know, however many years. Yeah. Who played more years of college football, Eric Gregory or Josh Brown? I don't know. But happy for Eric Gregory, too. He's going to, I guess he did declare for the draft. I don't know if he's going to get drafted or not, but good dude, longtime Razorback, and wish him well also.
I said this a lot with Andrew Armstrong, but there's something to be said about college players who truly do just get better and better and better throughout their careers. And I would say both of those guys, Landon Jackson and Eric Gregory, did that. If you look at Eric Gregory, he was at Arkansas for 6 years, just kind of had to work his way, get on the field. About a redshirt sophomore year, he started making some progress. And look, he was never like this game-changing defensive lineman or anything, but gave Arkansas a lot of key snaps there in the middle. And he stuck it out. How often do you see a guy stay at one school for 6 years? We say those big guys, they don't like to move too much. Eric Gregory is an example of that. And he's a legendary video game player. Him and Isaiah Satania, by the way. So Arkansas will greatly be missing those guys on the streams. And Landon Jackson, people forget this about Landon Jackson. He was obviously a big-time recruit coming out of high school when he went to LSU and like a notable portal pickup. He had 0 career tackles when he came to Arkansas back in 2022. Yeah. And then, had a few sacks as a sophomore at Arkansas, upped it as an all-SEC guy last year, might be an all-SEC guy this year, just continued to get better and better, really came into his own at Arkansas. And so it was cool to watch his career play out because I was kind of skeptical when they picked him up. I was like, are we sure this guy's really, is he really just a looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane kind of guy? And he really evolved and turned himself into a legitimate NFL player. I think his days of playing football are just beginning, if you ask me.
Yeah, he was also a guy that I remember talking with Matt Moscone. I think I brought this up of down there at ESPN Baton Rouge when he transferred to Arkansas, and he even told me he's a project. He's athletic and all that, but he's so raw. He could be great. He could not figure it out, but I think there's no question that he is great, and he did figure it out. And he's the type of defensive end that you want to have, where he arrives on campus a little bit skinnier, a freak athlete, but then develops and becomes a bona fide defensive end. Like that. That's the type of player you want to have. So wish him nothing but the best. He's a great guy. Just talking to him, SEC Media Days, he was always really cool and interesting, and was very, very unlike other people that I talked to at SEC Media Days for Razorback Football. He was always very interesting to talk to. And, of course, I'm talking about KJ Jefferson and Rocket Sanders. Those were the 3 guys they brought to Media Days one day. Rocket and KJ were just awful. But Landon was good. Landon was good. It was good to talk to him. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know if you guys will even care as much as I do. This is one of those things that just boils my nuggets on occasion. When players are out of eligibility, you cannot come back, and then you put out a statement that you're declaring for the NFL draft. I don't know. It just kind of rubs me the wrong way, where I'm like, okay, but what else are you going to do? I don't know. Maybe that's just something that I just never understood.
I declare for the NFL draft. But you got to do it, or else you're not going to get drafted.
Yeah. Well, and I think the guys who run out of eligibility that aren't going to declare for the NFL draft, they need to declare their intentions, or I declare that I'm going to get a 9 to 5, or whatever. Yeah. We just want to know what you're doing. That's all. Yeah. Keep us informed.
I declared as being a management assistant at Enterprise Rent a Car.
Hey, we follow you for 4 or 5 years, whether you're going to the league or to a cubicle. We want to know what you got going on. So fill us in.
Yeah. I remember Danny West told me that Shane Clennon, you remember Shane Clennon could play all 5 positions on the O-line. I remember Danny told me that he was transferring to JB Hunt.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot of guys that will go pro in something other than sports on this team.
Yeah. I was about to bring that up. Isn't that the NCAA commercial that they would always have?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it just felt, I was like, man, it's kind of insulting because now it became an insult where you're like, yeah, you're going to be playing something other than professional sports. That was a rough go for them. But yeah, so we'll keep you updated. Keep it right here at Inside Arkansas, folks, because anytime there's a big portal or any sort of big news coming out, additions, subtractions, anything like that, be sure to tune in with us here at Inside Arkansas because we're gonna make it happen for you. All right, let's go ahead and jump into your SEC update presented by Rhoback. Go to rhoback.com and use promo code HOGSBY20 for 20% off your purchase. Look, I got this on, and it is amazing. It is so comfortable. It's incredible stuff. And with Christmas time coming around, you got to get you some great gifts for the fam, maybe even a little something for yourself. But if you go to rhoback.com, use that promo code HOGSBY20, you get 20% off your first purchase with Rhoback. It's rhoback.com. They got it all. Performance wear, hoodies, shorts, quarter zips, pullovers, joggers, polos, everything at rhoback.com. Real quick, we're going to talk basketball because there was, of course, the SEC ACC Challenge. But guys, what do y'all think about the fact that the SEC has banned UGA and Bevo from being at the SEC title game in Atlanta? Your thoughts?
I didn't know they did that, and that's upsetting to me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, wasn't it? It was, now to think about it, it's this same matchup. I think he's ducking Bevo, right?
I think so.
Because I mean, you remember it was Georgia Texas in the Sugar Bowl back in like 2020 or 21 or whatever it was, when they got him on the loose, and so I think they're just trying to avoid controversy.
Yeah, because I think
I didn't realize UGA was going to be running from the grind like that.
Yeah. Well, here's my thing. I remember when that happened when Bevo kind of went after UGA, but I'm like, what did you think was going to happen in that situation? It's like, oh, wouldn't this be great photo op to get this bulldog over here with a cow and see what happens? Like, what did you think? You just think that they were just going to sniff each other and hang out and what a great, no. And it's like, you got to be smart. You got to be not dumb like that. So yeah, they want to keep any sort of tensions rising. Forget that you can just have them on opposite sides of the field and not hang out together. But no, they've been banned. So sad day for all you UGA fans out there.
It's disappointing, man. It really is. I
Could
think
you
Texas
imagine?
is going to get him this time, by the way.
That
You
will
think?
be.
I think so.
It's hard to beat a team twice in a year. As
That's
we
the
know.
only reason I think that.
Well, they might have to beat him 3 times if they
Yeah.
go to,
No
they go to
kidding.
the playoff.
Yeah, that could happen. Could you imagine the uproar if Arkansas actually made it to the SEC tournament championship game? And they're like, hey, no Tusk. Tusk can't go out there. People be like, I beg to differ. He's going to go out there. It's going to happen.
Be unacceptable. Got to
Yeah,
have.
but then the SEC would be like, no, and they'd be like, okay, like, we tried. Everyone would just be so happy to be in the SEC championship game. That all that matters. But in some basketball news, folks, the SEC ACC Challenge took place over the past couple of days, and man, oh man, what a performance by the Southeastern Conference. Normally, this is something that the SEC either breaks even with or whatever. 14-2 is what the SEC went overall. The only 2 losses being to something you talked about yesterday, this Kentucky program, and then Auburn last night as they lost to Duke in a Cameron Indoor 84-78. But yeah, heck of a performance by the SEC. Start up the chant and get everybody hyped.
They're gonna have to find something better to call this than a challenge, man. Like it's like calling these rivalries where it's so lopsided. Not really a rivalry. You can't call this a challenge if there's no challenge put forth by one of the conferences involved. Yeah, just dominant stuff by the SEC, which in one hand, like you can puff out your chest and be like, hell yeah, it means more, whatever. But that just means that your league is that much harder this year. Like all these teams are good. So that's a little bit irritating, whatever. But yeah, man, that was some fun basketball last night for sure. I was flipping back and forth a little bit. Alabama just dominated North Carolina in North Carolina from start to finish. They're just better. And honestly, I wasn't even that impressed with Alabama so much as North Carolina just ain't what they once were, man. Armando Bacot ain't walking back through that door. But that Auburn Duke game, I tweeted it out, but like there are levels to this in college basketball. Auburn and Duke are at a higher level than 99.9% of the other programs out there right now, including Arkansas. Those are 2 really, really good teams. And, good on Duke for getting the win at home. But I walked away still very impressed with what Auburn's been able to do, man. They're good.
Yeah, Auburn Duke was definitely one of those games. We can jokingly do the thing about Kentucky and Auburn being the 2 teams and dunking on them. But I kind of had the same reaction where I was just like watching that. I'm like, man, these are 2 damn good teams. The exact opposite of how I felt watching Arkansas and Miami, frankly, where I was like,
Correct.
they're two bad teams. But yeah, many are asking though, Curtis, did Auburn and Kentucky peak too early? Did they blow their load a little too soon? Actually, I will say this, unironically, Auburn, I don't feel that way about. Like, I think Auburn is a national title contender, like, still might be the best team in the country. Like, honestly, still. Kentucky, I actually think that's that. I'm not saying they did, but I'm just like, I could actually see the vision. I mean, Mark Pope literally did it last year, where his team started off hot and then, kind of realized, oh, maybe they're not really up there with those elite teams. It is interesting because, preseason, we always view we have our preseason top 25 and we kind of how we view them. I'm wondering, is Kentucky closer to how we viewed them preseason or how hyped they were about a week ago? Like, which one are they closer to? I think it's how we felt preseason, if you ask me.
I think so too, because, anytime they play a game and they hit 12, 15 threes, they're going to be in a position to win it. But they haven't been doing that the last few games and they've looked vulnerable. But at the end of the day, when you're playing better competition, you've got to have a guy you can just put the ball in his hands and he can create and he can just go get you a bucket. It can't always be, oh, we run this cool offense with a bunch of movement and good screens and reads. That's all great for 38 minutes in a game. But when it's nut cutting time, somebody's got to be able to go get you one. And they just do not have that guy. So when they're in grinders like that, I think they're going to wind up losing some close games because they don't have that dude who can take over for them. And then they'll have their share of games where you just can't keep up with them because of the firepower. They'll win a whole lot of ball games, but yeah, I'm with you. They got up into the top 5 and I understand why they did because of the win over Duke and they're beating the hell out of everybody. But never really looked at them and thought, yeah, that's a top 5 team. You
got to be able to dribble in this sport, I would argue.
Yes.
And here it's important. Yeah. Well, and it was funny too, because last night with going back to the Alabama-North Carolina game, I have a good friend. I've always referenced him, but he's an Alabama fan. But he was just sitting there saying, he's like, yeah, Mark Sears sucks. He's like, he may not be as good this year. He's terrible. Look at his stat line. I'm like, well, he had 20 points on 7 of 14 from the field and 7 assists. And, looked pretty all right to me. But I didn't watch the game fully.
It's just a matter of time for him. I think coming into the game, he's all of his percentages were down, like points per game down, field goal percentage down, free throws down, 3-point percentage down, like significantly in every area, to where people were like, yeah, I mean, he's still an effective college basketball player, but he's not the National Player of the Year candidate that you thought he would be. And it looks like he may have turned a little bit of a corner. All it takes is going to North Carolina and facing a Hubert Davis defense to get it going. So
I also just love that we're in the era of college sports where like players are on washed watch. We can watch players get washed up. And so Mark Sears is on washed watch. He beat the allegations, but and I think he will beat the allegations.
Oh, boys. Breaking news. Very big breaking news. From Matt Zenitz says, Arkansas starting offensive guard Patrick Kutas is set to enter the transfer portal. So if we want to go ahead and shift gears.
I can't wait for the fan base to tell me why he sucks and why they wanted to replace him anyway.
Yeah, let us have it. I'm going to say big ouch, and then y'all tell me why this one ain't bad.
Oh,
that's a very notable development. Yeah. Not the most surprising development, although I will say, I felt like Patrick Kutas. Now, look, I'm sure this came down to NIL. I'm sure he's going to get a bag somewhere. I felt like Arkansas did Patrick Kutas a solid by like properly managing his red shirt, which, by the way, Arkansas never does under Sam Pittman. They've botched like every single red shirt situation possible, but they went out of their way to try and do right by Patrick Kutas, only play him in 4 games, preserve his red shirt. You remember Pittman even made that joke early in the year where he was like, well, if I'm going to red shirt you, then, you better be coming back to play for us. And he was like, oh yeah, I'm not worried about that. Patrick Kutas, man. I mean, look, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out he's going to, require a bag from wherever school he's going to play next year. He's going to be getting a bag. That's Arkansas's best offensive lineman, most talented offensive lineman. I know he only played in 4 games this year, but like that was one of the ones you really wanted to keep. And that's a tough one. But again, I know this fan base is just going to say, oh, he sucked and he's replaceable. Well, now you got to replace him.
Man,
we agree with that. I mean, he's their best offensive lineman.
Yes,
I would say he was definitely the most talented. And I mean, the numbers,
sure,
he graded out pretty well. I mean, he played 4 games, but I would say, yeah. I mean, going into next year, I would have viewed him higher than any of Arkansas's returning linemen for sure.
Yeah, this is as far as players that you didn't want to miss out on. This was a big one. I know that guys, we had heard some rumblings and possibility of him entering into the portal. But kind of like what you tweeted out, Curtis, and talked about. It's like, Sam Pittman honoring the red shirt wishes of Patrick Kutas would be like, oh, we're going to do this, but you got to come back now. I don't want to red shirt you for somebody else. Oh, no, I'm coming back.
If we weren't live right now, I would definitely go find that clip and have it out immediately.
Yeah. I mean, he couldn't preserve the red shirt of Charlie Collins, couldn't preserve the red shirt of Summon Bridges, couldn't preserve the red shirt of Tevis Metcalf, but he preserved Patrick Kutas's just so Ole Miss will get him for an extra year.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. That's a tough one. I wonder if who else did he say? Oh yeah, Miguel Mitchell was the other one. He said before the Missouri game, like, if we'll play him if we have to, but he wants a red shirt, and we'd like to accommodate that for him. So he didn't play. Is that going to be a situation where he's out of here too? Just giving him an extra year somewhere else. That's a tough one, man. Kutas is good. He's very good. That's going to be a tough one to replace. And again, we're doing the thing where you want to retain your best players. When you don't do that, can you go out there and replace a guy? Sure, but you want to add to the talent that you have. So it makes it even more difficult for Arkansas now. And I'm not sure if you're going to be able to go out in the portal and get a dude as good and as talented as Patrick Kutas. I don't know that you will. They'll go get somebody. Like, we can play the game now. What's the most important position for Arkansas to tackle in the transfer portal? Well, offensive line's higher on that list now all of a sudden. But it's what I will agree with people who might say some things is that it's going to be easier to replace what you lost in Satania than it is Patrick Kutas. This is a tough one.
Yeah. Also, just for the record, Patrick Kutas, quite literally Arkansas's highest graded offensive lineman this year at 71.0 overall, which is like 71.0 doesn't sound like a high one, but for offensive guards, like, it's really hard to generate a high grade. I believe he didn't have enough to be qualified, but he was basically a top 15 to 20 SEC guard. Which every team has two, so whatever.
Yeah.
He was Arkansas's highest graded guy. He was also like, I felt like on Arkansas's offensive line, I've always said this, like, they just don't have guys that are going to play in the NFL. I feel like he was the one guy on Arkansas's offensive line that had a chance to play in the NFL. And he probably will play in the NFL. It just will not be representing the Arkansas Razorbacks.
Man, that's a tough blow. That's a tough blow there, guys. I think I have the clip. I think I do, of him talking about redshirt. We're going to play this for about 2 seconds, and then we'll find out. So we'll see. But this was Sam Pittman a few weeks ago.
You mentioned last week that you would like to redshirt Kutas if possible, but as well as he played on Saturday, I mean, how do you have a plan for that? How does that work?
I have a plan to play him 4 games. So we're going to try to play him on Saturday, and that'll be 2. And then we'll try to figure that out. But the deal that we talked about was he wanted a red shirt. And I said, hey, now, we ain't trying to red shirt you for somebody else, And I said, no, Coach, I would never, I'm a Hog. I want to be here. But I also, he kind of lost that freshman year in special team. Didn't lose it, but it was special team. Didn't play a lot of offensive line. This would be our way of getting that back. But we're going to play him Saturday. How about that? And then we have 2 more opportunities to figure out 2 out of 3.
I love Pittman acknowledging that he botched his red shirt his freshman year, because he's another one of those guys that they played all 12 games as a true freshman on field goal block. He didn't even play on offense, but they burned his red shirt, and so he's like, okay, we'll do him this solid and get that year back. That's a tough one, dude. That really is a tough one. And also, like, I'm not trying to, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. That's a little bit of a tough look for Patrick Kutas, right?
I agree. Yeah. You're right. We don't know about behind the scenes stuff, but surface level, after Pittman spoke on that, just like he did very publicly, it's tough on both parts.
And it's tough for Pittman too, because it's like you kind of put yourself out there and you're like, hey, yeah, this is what we're doing.
You add it to the growing list of guys that they brought in as freshman offensive linemen who either didn't pan out or they started to develop and then dipped. So who's left? Amarian Harris? Is he the only one that joined as a freshman and is turned into at least the guy who plays for you? Everybody else is a portal addition right now, I think.
Dude, I don't know. This goes back to my whole point about why Sam Pittman needs to do a press conference really quickly to talk about the signing day, because this is going to be another thing that gets thrown to him and asked about.
That's a tough one.
Yeah, and not only that, guys, but it's not that it matters, but like Patrick Kutas already retweeted Matt Zenith's tweet. So it's not like, it's like, no, man, I am out.
Well, he's gonna get paid. He's gonna be well taken care of. Based on I'd be wiping away, the tears with the $100 bills, man, because it'd be taken care of.
I want to touch on this real quick because I see people do this a lot with PFF grades where, Michael says, PFF 71 is not good. Well, one, it's literally the best on Arkansas's offensive line this year. It led the entire, Carmona is a guy we were saying that was a nice return for him. He had like a 67.7. They start the grades at 60 and then you fluctuate from there. So he played in 4 games and got his grade up to 71. If he had played a full season, we're talking about he probably would have gotten up there in the 75 range. And also there are about 800 guards in college football who are qualified. And the 71 overall grade, that would be good for 67th nationally among the 800 qualified guards. So let's just do the math here. You lost like a top, 15 to 20% guard in the entire country. And now it's 4-game sample size, all that. But it was really his second year as a starter. Like going into next year, he would have been a preseason all-SEC offensive lineman. He probably will be when he goes to Ole Miss and is starting at right guard for them. We can sit here and do mental gymnastics if y'all want to. Arkansas just lost their best offensive lineman and a guy that they went out of their way to try and serve to make sure he came back next year. Now they're going to have to add. That's another position of need that you're now going to have to replace a guy you did not think you were going to have to replace. Y'all can miss me with that bullshit talking about, it doesn't matter. We'll replace him. We'll get someone better. You just fielded an entire offensive line out of the portal, and they stunk, and you hated them. So now you're going to do it again? I don't know. Doesn't seem great.
And now you have to do this thing again, like the trickle-down effect of it, where, it might have been a situation where it's like, Bron's going to, he's been playing forever. He's going to go start the next chapter. Blackstock, we don't know. Maybe we let him go do his own thing. And now you have to look at it and go, okay, are we going to be in a situation here where we have a lot of needs? Do we go out and have to really pay up to get 2 starting guards on an offensive line, try to rebuild this thing through the transfer portal again? Or do we, now we got to get one, and do we really try to pony up to get one of these guys back just for continuity's sake? It's just, it's tough, man. And so you might have, revenue sharing or some more NIL or whatever, but when things like this happen, it does not help you from a financial standpoint either.
Guys, I'm not going to say this is a report or scoop. I'm not going to do that. But I think we do need to talk about, because we did mention it a little bit before the show started. I think a lot of eyes are going to be looking at Luke Hasz right now, the tight end for Arkansas, because even as the season went on, we talked about it amongst ourselves, just like, man, he might be somebody that looks to move on. And Curtis, I know you texted about it, and I got confirmation of it, that Luke Hasz was supposed to be on for a radio interview this morning that he just happened to miss out on. What's crazy is he's never missed out on one. Not one. So I think we're going to be on Luke Hasz watch right now.
Did he ever join the show later or something, or just
Not that I've heard. If
officially? Anybody knows, let us know. But yeah, it's apparently he wasn't there for his 10:30 appointment or whatever. So.
Guys, can we take a quick trip down a little Remember Wednesday on a Thursday real quick?
Sure.
Let's go look at Arkansas's 2022 recruiting class. And look, these guys were supposed to be juniors this year. Redshirt sophomores or juniors. Supposed to be kind of the core of the team. And going into next year would have been the senior class. We got Isaiah Satania, portal. Kutas, portal. Chambly, portal. Bakke, portal. Powell, portal. Amarian Harris, starting lowest graded guard in the SEC. Joyner, portal. Jordan Crook, portal. Anthony Brown, portal. Rashad Dubinion, okay running back. Dax Courtney, medically retired, transferred to UCA. Nico Davier, playable defensive end. We'll see if he portals. Jalen Lewis, portal. Ty Washington, portal. Taylor Lewis, quit the team. J.J. Hollingsworth, buried on the depth chart. Caden Henley, buried on the depth chart. Eli Henderson, buried on the depth chart. Max Fletcher, portal. Eli Stein, portal. Riker Aspo, transferred to wide receiver, buried on the depth chart. Hunter Talley, Cameron Bibby, Kai Hamilton, Kyle Thompson, Ethan Joseph. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your senior class for the Arkansas Razorbacks going into next year.
What's your point, Andrew?
Is that you can't do that. If you want to keep your job and you want to survive as a program, you cannot have a recruiting class where I just listed off the entire goddamn class and you have 2 playable players that are in your 2 deep. 2.
Yeah. Don't worry. Somebody just quote tweeted me on Twitter and said the top JUCO guard in the nation's coming to the Hogs.
Yeah, and he's not even going to be able to play.
No.
Like he is a project that they were hoping to bring in for depth, and now he's going to maybe have to start. Like that's not a good thing,
folks. And I'm not telling all fans this because I know there's a lot of you fans out there that are logical and reasonable and have really good opinions on things and have a good head on your shoulders. But folks, this is not just something that you just move on from. This is a major blow to Arkansas, and this is not something that they're just going to go into the portal and magically get anyone as good as Patrick Kutas. I'm just being honest. This is a major blow. So miss me with that other stuff too that you're throwing out there. Unless they get like the number one transfer portal offensive guard or tackle or whatever like that, maybe.
That's Kutas.
Yeah, exactly. That's going to be my point. It's like maybe, but it seems like Kutas is kind of that guy right now.
And here's the thing. If Arkansas had gotten a wide receiver with Isaiah Satania's resume, former 4-star, played as a redshirt freshman, took a nice step forward as a redshirt sophomore, Arkansas fans would be thrilled. If they got an offensive lineman with 2 years of starting experience, graded out pretty well this year, Arkansas would be thrilled. And again, not all these guys in and of themselves are like program changers, but when you add it all up and you just go through the list, Arkansas doesn't have any stability coming back, and like the recruiting class that was supposed to kind of be the core of your team is completely gone. Again, we keep coming back. All eyes are now pointing even more to the transfer portal. Arkansas is going to have to ball out in the transfer portal, and they're going to have to randomly get rich, and we'll see how it works out. I mean, there's time, we'll see if Arkansas just goes out and gets a loaded class, but again, it just puts more and more pressure on them to do just that.
Guys, at this rate, whenever we do get to hear from Sam Pittman, no one's going to ask him any questions about the high school class. It's just going to end up being straight up, hey, what's the situation with Kutas? Hey, what's the situation with Satania? Hey, what's the situation with this guy? Because I don't think they're done yet. There might be some other ones. So who's not for right now? Who's the most important player you have to keep on this roster next year? Now that we know who's gone, who is it? Is it Jalen Braxton?
Probably has, honestly. I mean, but I don't know. I don't know if you can say a tight end is the most important player on the roster.
Yeah. I mean, Braxton's probably up there.
Yeah.
You don't have a secondary, so.
Man.
Might have to just go all in on the defense, man. You might just have to be a defense and run the ball, like it might just have to be that. So, yeah, I'd say Braxton. Frankly, I mean, I can't say Nico Davier is like a game changer, but that's a guy that they really need to keep just because, again, you can't really afford to have more guys to have to replace on the defensive line as holes are starting to pop up other places.
Sheesh, man, this is wild stuff. I do appreciate Kutas for doing it during our show today and not like, yesterday when you had Isaiah Satania just decide to do that literally 5 minutes after we get done with the live stream. So that's nice of him to do. But still, yeah, this one's, I don't know if we'll ever get to hear from Kutas. And maybe he'll address it, maybe he won't. It doesn't matter. But I would like to know more about that exchange that him and Pittman had in the video we just played about, oh, no, he said, I'm always a Hog, coach. I ain't going to leave you. Well, is it NIL? Is it he doesn't like Mateos? Is it, I mean, there's a lot of different reasons that could happen. But, man, it's just not a good look. It's not a good look at all for Arkansas right now.
No, that's a tough one. So who's left? Carmona, Nichols,
Blackstock,
and then
I mean, Braun still has not said one way or the other,
Harris,
but
yeah,
Marion Harris. I mean, dude, you better hope Marion Harris turns into freaking Frank Ragnow next year.
He's gonna have to get it going. Yeah.
So let me ask you guys this: does it put more pressure, or at least they need to put in a lot more effort into trying to do what they can to keep Josh Braun? Like, does that, whether it's up in his ante or whatever it is?
I would. Like, I mean, if I already have to go out and replace a really good starting offensive lineman in the SEC, I don't want to have to do it twice.
Right.
Like Braun's not, again, like he's not a superstar, but you were talking about it yesterday with guys, John, who can just like get the job done. And sometimes that's what you need. And I think he qualifies as one of those guys. So.
And again, like, whether it's Sori, Satania, Kutas, whoever, again, it's not even about how good they are. It's just someone you would like to have that you don't have to replace. I mean, when you have a roster full of 100 and you've got 22 starters on each side of the ball, having a returning starter is a big deal. You would like to do that. And so, I mean, back in the day, you remember when we used to, that would be how we determined who's going to be good in the fall. How many returning starters do you have? And I get that the world has changed a lot since then. And I know everybody's just saying, oh, we'll just get someone out of the portal. as the minutes go by, you're adding on to what you have to get in the portal. It's this ain't good. This ain't bad development for the Arkansas Razorbacks. I don't care what mental gymnastics the fan base wants to do.
It is funny though, because I'm not saying it'll happen, but it would be kind of funny if Kutas just came back. You've seen having players enter in the portal. They're like, I actually want to come back to Arkansas.
I mean, look, there's always room for that kind of stuff. A bag drop is valuable, as we've learned over the years. And Arkansas is going to have to drop a few if they want to keep this roster intact.
Man, crazy, crazy, crazy times. And it ain't done yet, folks. It ain't done yet. It's just going to be mad. In fact, I'm looking at it right now. None of it's Arkansas guys, but just like the guys that we follow on social media, like Matt Zenitz, like you talked about, Curtis, or forget the other guy that I have my noties turned on for, the on-3 dude.
Hayes Fawcett.
Yes, Hayes Fawcett. Thank you.
Hayes did a good job.
Yeah, like, I mean, they are just right now tweeting craziness. Just right now, just nonstop. Like, this player's transferred, this player's entered the portal, just nonstop. So, yeah, there's going to be plenty of options out there to add bodies, but man,
the portal hasn't even opened yet.
When does it open officially?
Monday, I think.
Yeah, Monday the 9th.
Yeah.
I guess you want to get ahead of it a little bit. I also think, I've always felt like with NIL, you can always tell by how good your NIL is, and one of the best examples of it is the keeping your best players. Well, Arkansas has not really done a good job of that right now, keeping their best players. If Has enters into the portal, man, if him and or Braxton enter in, it's going to be
and Russell.
Just
maybe they're prioritizing, and they were like, we got to get Cam Ball and Sorey back here, and that's our pot for return.
I'll tell you another guy that Arkansas really needs to keep, and I'm skeptical that they are going to be able to. Brad Spence. We've been raving about this linebacker group and how they've somehow been able to manage it all or whatever. That's another guy, and that Brad Spence is one of the few guys on the roster. You recruited out of high school, you've developed him at your own rate, you've turned him into an SEC player. You would like to be the team that reaps the benefit of it. Losing him would just be another tough blow. And I mean, there's not that many players returning on this roster that you feel good about. But yeah, pretty much all these guys that we've listed, like Arkansas really needs to hunker down. You cannot keep letting these teams in the SEC just pick your roster apart.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing with Spence is I didn't realize that Steven Dix still had eligibility. It kind of comes down to me the same way I felt about the quarterbacks, right? Where it's like, okay, I have a hard time believing both of those guys are going to come back. I think they're both guys who certainly feel like they should be starting and getting a bulk of the snaps in the SEC alongside Sorey. Well, they both aren't going to get that unless they really start playing three linebackers more. So, something to be said there. Can you keep both of them? You're going to have to pay up.
Arkansas is going to be running a 2-4-5 next year up front with the D line, the linebackers. Maybe they can play 5 linebackers with Tavion Wallace in there.
Just bummed I can't refer to him as Coot anymore. I like just saying that. Kutas.
Be good to get Coot back.
Yeah, man.
We can't do that anymore. It's over. By the way, I want to share a Patrick Kutas story. He was at our launch party back in the day for our previous company, and I offered him a drink. And at the time, did not realize he was under 21. And he was very polite, and he was like, you know what, I can't do that. Just gotta be honest with you, man. Cannot have a drink with you. So shout out to Patrick Kutas. Turned me down for a drink. Maybe he thought I was a narc that was gonna snitch on him, but wish I'd gotten that drink with him.
Sometimes you forget that dudes who are 6'6", 320 pounds are still kids.
I will say, Patrick Kutas is funny because like his face looks like a 19-year-old. Like he looks like a child in the face. Body not looking like a 19-year-old. It's interesting, but yeah, it is. I did kind of forget. And plus, Josh Braun is like 33, so it's like
Yeah.
Well, him and Addison Nichols. Like, remember Nichols had the wooden bow tie that he wore to the launch party. But yeah, I think when he cut his hair used to be long. When he cut his hair to long, he looked even younger. Yeah, he looked even younger. It was just crazy. But yeah, man, it's unfortunate. It's really unfortunate. I'm trying to find the chat that was started earlier. It was a really good one, and it's kind of right here from Philly. Says, not sure how next year's simulated Hogs can recover from him entering the portal. Talking about Satania. Same thing with Coot. I mean, man, guys, because we're going to be at the Leroy tonight, folks, by the way, at 7:00 for a live stream. So be sure to come hang out with us. But next Thursday, when we're at the Leroy for the final time this year, we're going to know what Arkansas bowl game they're going to be in. Those rosters, man, I don't know how we're gonna have to put in a lot of different weird stuff in there to try to make the roster work.
You know, it's going to be annoying, John, when we try and move Andrew Armstrong down the depth chart, and then he just keeps popping back up.
Yep. Oh yeah, him and Kutas and Isaiah Satania. Because I'm trying to think of, Armstrong's not like Broden. Is he going to try to make an appearance in the bowl game? And
hey, dude, he's got to.
Like, what else is he going to? Yeah, just say Curtis. Yeah, like what else is he going to do?
Prepare for his long career in the NFL.
Yeah, might have to.
You know what's crazy? Y'all ready for a hot take of all hot takes? And I've said this before.
Hit it.
Don't be surprised if you're watching NFL preseason action next year and Tyrone Broden catches a pass or makes a play on special teams. I think he's going to be one of those guys that, like, at pro day is going to run like a 4.43. Some stupid ass NFL team's going to see him in shorts. They're going to see his special teams film, and they're like, you know what? This guy might crack our roster. Don't be surprised if Tyrone Broden gets an invite to an NFL training camp.
Yep. You're going to see that 6'7" size. It'll be like when Batman Carroll, I know a lot of you remember Ahmad Batman Carroll, was drafted in the first round of the Packers.
Yeah.
He was not a good secondary player. He was not a good defensive back at Arkansas. The only reason he got drafted that high is because I think he ran a 4.26 40 at the NFL Combine. It was like, holy crap. And that dude was bad. So just, there's all those combine warriors that people get overhyped about and ends up costing them some stuff. So, all right. Well, we'll keep you updated, folks, here at Inside Arkansas. Any more news needs to be addressed? Any other players leaving? And the fact that the portal's not, I didn't even think about that, Curtis. The portal's not even open yet. Yeah. It's hilarious. It's like it's going to start becoming like, remember when Black Friday shopping was a thing, then now it's not at all because people just kept moving it back and back and back, and now it's just people are open for Thanksgiving. It's going to be the same way with the portal. It's like, portal starts here. Oh, how crazy it is that day. It's like, nope, just people keep moving it back and back and back. What's going to feel like?
I remember with the NBA signing, like the free agency signing thing, I think it starts like July 1st or something like that. And then I would just be like subscribed to Woj. And then at like 12 midnight, he just rattles off 74 deals that have already been agreed to and signed. I'm like, good Lord. I really wish they would be more strict about that, where it's like, no, it starts on this day. You got to, like, at 6 a.m., you got to be ready. It's just going to be a flood. Like, I really wish you were more like that. Kind of like signing day, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. We just got about 10 or so minutes here left on the show, folks. We appreciate you all jumping in. I did want to get to this. I know it was way back in the beginning of the show, but I did want to show another great appreciation to Logan and another phenomenal, great super chat saying RIP Bob, Arkansas meeting will never be the same. Thank you so much, Logan. Like, for not only the words, but also for the super chat itself. I know you donated yesterday, and to do it again today, we really, really appreciate that. I mean, it means a lot.
Yeah, thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Really appreciate that, and man, I'm glad that we have we got the rich folks that watch our show, man. That's good. It's good to see.
Yeah,
yeah. I need to have Logan out here. He's going to be funding a trip of ours here very soon. Something like that. The way that this is going. A few things just to know I thought were random about with transfer portal season and signing class and all that. I don't know if you saw what Brett Bielema said, former Razorback coach, but he said that Bielema apparently signed 21 players. And he said, quote, I've never been in their home, and it's an absolute travesty, and it's on the NCAA. Some teams buy their classes. I know what we spent. If we eventually all use the same level of a checkbook, I'm excited about where this thing can go. So he's pretty upset.
Why is it the NCAA's fault that he's never been to his recruits' houses?
I don't know. I guess because,
like, I know the rules have changed a little bit, but like we're not in COVID anymore. You can go see recruits, right?
Yeah, I think he can. I think it was just more of
dates and all that, but like you can definitely go talk to recruits.
I guess I'm taking it as he probably, the recruits he did visit, none of them came, but the ones that he signed were the ones he just kind of had to throw, an offer to and talk to him via Zoom or whatever it was. That's the way I took it, at least. So, yeah, just more of the coaches complaining and coaches getting pissed about the way things are right now. Also, did you guys see that Urban Meyer addressed the nation about his job over there at Ohio State?
I did not know.
I saw some of this.
Put out a statement. Like, Ryan Day is still the coach of Ohio State, by the way. He just says, quote, it has come to my attention that there are reports speculating about my return to the sidelines in Columbus. While I thoroughly enjoyed my 7 seasons as coach as the Ohio State University, I have no interest in coaching again. I'll always be a Buckeye and have full confidence in Ryan Day, his staff, and every player that puts on the scarlet and gray. I haven't seen any reports.
that sounds like something that like he was reading the replies, and there's like an Ohio State guy that was like, "Oh, I'd love to have Urban Meyer back," and he's like, "I need to address this. need to address
need to get out and
wash 69 or whatever,
Need to get out in front of it, before it really takes off running there." But yeah, I saw that and I was like, okay, thank you. I don't know who else was getting upset by that, but a few other random notes here. Guys, I don't know if you guys enjoy it. I am loving the Twitter spats about the college football playoff from athletic directors and coaches and everything. It is so much fun.
Bielema and Kiffin were getting after it about this.
Yeah, Bielema, Kiffin. And the latest now is the Iowa State and SMU athletic directors arguing with each other on Twitter. Because according to the Iowa athletic director, Jamie Pollard, he says, disappointing the strength of schedule clearly does not matter for SMU, Indiana, or Boise State. The message is clear. Win as many games as possible, regardless of who you play. Time to rethink the non-conference scheduling. Very different standards than the basketball committee. To which Rick Hart, the SMU athletic director, responds with, Jamie, respect you, but bad take. Iowa State had North Dakota, Iowa, Arkansas State non-con. SMU had Nevada, HCU, TCU, BYU, and scrambled due to Vandy dropping us. SMU 1 of 2 to win all conference games, 1 of 3 to win 9 Power 4 wins, trailed a total of 6+ minutes last 9 games. I could go on, but stay off my lawn. And then Jamie Pollard responds with, Rick, beat Clemson Saturday, and I will respect your ranking. Until then, you did not play Clemson, Miami, Georgia Tech, or Syracuse, and lost to BYU at home. Looks like your lawn may be artificial.
That's a good one.
Man,
that's good.
This is good stuff right here. People thought that the playoff would be bad for college football. Come on now. This is awesome. This is great.
Well, I also love that we when we moved to 4, it was like, okay, now there's no debate. Move to 12. Okay, now there's no debate. You could literally be a 64 team playoff and you'll still have people being like, wow, we got left out. I mean, come on. I mean, we have it in basketball all the time. These teams that go 7-11 in conference play are like, how the hell did we get left out? And it's like crazy, but it just proves that no matter where you set the parameters, there's always the first team out that's going to be pissed.
Mm-hmm. No matter what, it's a tale as old as time. I just think it's funny that all these people are doing all these things and it's not going to matter. I don't think anybody on the college football playoff committee is be like, well, I've never thought of it that way, the way that Lane Kiffin tweeted. In that case, I'll put this together and re-rank them. No one's going to do that. It's just farting in the wind right now. No one cares. And so I will ask, I know we'll talk a lot about it tomorrow, looking at the conference championship slate. And do you guys think that any major changes happens in the playoff rankings where it stands right now compared to next week?
I think the only thing that could happen would be Bama getting bumped.
for Clemson.
Clemson wins. Yeah.
I just really am curious to see if say that it's Clemson 48-10, like they really put it on SMU. It's going to be really tough for them to not bump Bama or bump SMU below Bama. I think that may be the only path to it. But I just am very interested to see like kind of the shuffle. I don't think there's going to be massive changes in teams jumping in, but I'm excited because we kind of went through the matchups of how it would be if the playoffs started now, but everyone's going to move up or down a spot or whatever. So I just am looking forward to seeing like what the games end up being.
Yeah.
I just don't know how you can punish a team for playing in their conference championship game in favor of a team that did not perform well enough throughout the course of the season to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll be very anxious to see if they really want to set that precedent,
I agree too. And like that's to be clear, I think it would be messed up if SMU got bumped out. I think they should, but I wouldn't be stunned.
Right.
Especially because, the committee has there's all these rules about how the committee ranks teams and blah, 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 but they have a bunch of vague wording for it where they're like, ultimately it just comes down to who's the best team. And so ultimately the committee could go out there and say, you know what? We just think Alabama's a better football team than SMU. F the resumes, F the regular season, F whatever. We think they're a better football team. And maybe they are. They really might be. But I think if you're Bama, you just don't get to like complain when you lost 28-3 or whatever it was to Oklahoma, who sucks. And then you get to like really draw the line and be pissed. I agree. I think SMU should be in no matter what. But I'm going to be interested. Like, the committee, this is the first ever 12-team playoff. You use that word precedent. This is a big time for them to kind of set the standard for what rules we're going to operate moving forward.
I did kind of like someone who was arguing about, I think it was an Ole Miss fan. They're just saying like, oh, Alabama gets this just because of the logo on their helmet and blah, blah, blah. And then some Alabama fans say, hey, we don't have a logo on our helmet.
Literally.
Yeah, I was like, it's pretty good. But no matter what, there's going to be pissed off people, and it's fine. I think it'd be hilarious to see the reaction, though, if the national championship game ends up being Bama and Georgia again, just like randomly. Everyone's talking about all this, and it ends up being the two teams that have played together in this championship like all the time. That'd be pretty good stuff. I'd love to see a reaction.
What happens if UNLV beats Boise? Because then they wouldn't be, they might be the best group of 5 champion or whatever, but they wouldn't get that bye, I don't think, in the top 4. So then who would it be? The Big 12 representative would have to go in there. So Arizona State or whoever the heck they're playing, and then then
could you imagine
like a 12? It'd be wild.
Arizona State getting a bye in the playoff would just be crazy. Shout out to Jordan Crook for being there and contributing to the cause. It's just
hilarious.
It's crazy to me how fun this new world of college football is. I know that the NIL and transfer portal, all that sucks, but I just mean this playoff, how it kind of just lets you know. You look at those 12 teams and you're like, dude, anything is possible. Freaking Barry Odom, might be in this sucker. Like, it's just crazy to see. I actually am really looking forward to that UNLV Boise State game. It was a damn good game, and they played on like a Friday night a couple months ago. I'm really looking forward to that game.
Yeah, I am too. I'm looking forward to all games this weekend, but yeah, that one should be a great one. Man, playoff chaos is so much fun. I thought the selection Sunday for college basketball is great. There's just gonna be a lot of pissed off people because also how much money is involved. Like if a school goes to the playoff, that's just like tens of millions of dollars in their pocket, and that's another thing that they're really having to, because money's tight on everybody, but especially for schools with this new revenue share deal. So they're trying. Everybody's just trying to get as much money as they humanly possibly can get. All right, just a few other random deals. Speaking of college basketball, going back to that, I don't know. I feel like this is wrong, and it pisses me off. Number 5 Marquette, number 6 Iowa State is a matchup, is a game on ESPN Plus. I understand that you're not going to be able to play all the games on the main networks and everything. But I feel like a top 6 matchup in college basketball probably should find your way onto ESPNU or 2 or whatever. I just cannot believe that they are having a top 6 college basketball matchup on you have to stream it on ESPN Plus.
Yeah,
Unreal.
they should have been able to figure that one out for sure.
Sheesh.
And I get it. There were some good games last night. But change your times around or something. You know what I mean? Like get it on one of those channels at 6:00 or so. I mean, come on,
dude, find a way. Find a way. I know you're capable. Yeah. I can understand if it was a number 16 playing a number 20 team, even maybe, but a top 6 matchup. Come on. Like if that's not on TV, what do you play on TV for college basketball? Obviously not those things. Also shout out to the Montana head coach, Montana basketball head coach, where, just trying to get students involved, trying to get the crowd in there. And Coach DeCure, he has said that he is buying a first round on Wednesday night for the first 100 students. They get a free beer as long as they're 21 and over, or $10 to the concession stands. One of the two.
Okay.
But they're trying to get students involved. So the coach is like, hey, first round's on me. First 100 students, as long as you're the age of 21, you get a free beer. Hey, Arkansas, do things like this. I don't have to be Cal saying it, but just do something like that. You know how many? Because even if they're not getting a free beer, they're just getting $10 or whatever it is. Like they're gonna be, oh man, hey, bro, beer. Let's roll in. Do something like this. It's very simple. So I like that from the Montana coach. It's good stuff.
I like that too, John. By the way, everybody wants you to know that people just stream nowadays. So stop bitching about that game not being on television.
Although I will say ESPN Plus is a paid one where, like, even though people do stream a lot, like SEC Network Plus, I always make fun of people when they complain about that, but ESPN Plus is also a separate, there are people that have to pay for that.
Yeah. That's my thing, is just like, I just want to show that you're featuring your best matchups and your most exciting games on your stuff. Like, yeah, we all stream things, but
That
You have
much
YouTube. If you have YouTube TV, yeah, it's streaming, but you still have ESPN and all of that. That's the main deal. All right, few quick chats here before we get out here, because I did want to mention a few of these. Me and Andrew were talking about this before the show started, but UCLA fired their OC Eric Bieniemy. Could be a reason why Madden flipped to Arkansas, or it could be the reason they fired him.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
But yes, so Eric Bieniemy used to be one of the biggest names, man, as far as a big time coach. Everyone was like, "Hey, we got to hire this guy," and now falling from grace, getting fired at UCLA. That's a tough look.
There was a reason it took forever for him to get other opportunities. You know,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I mean, I remember when people were acting like it was like a travesty that he wasn't a head coach in the NFL. And like, look, I understand a lot of people that are like good coordinators in the NFL get head coaching jobs, but being the OC who's not calling plays under Andy Reid, it's kind of like being like, I don't know. Like, I mean, it would be like being Saban's defensive backs coach, frankly, where it's like, yeah, I'm sure you have that title, but are you really coaching the DBs? And so, yeah, I mean, like, I wouldn't have been stunned if he had gotten an NFL job, but he interviewed for a ton, and I get the Rooney Rule exists and all that, and that teams abuse that. But I think that there was pretty unanimous. Like, every time he interviewed for a job, teams did not come away impressed with him. And then, yeah, I mean, I think once he got away from Andy Reid, it didn't go particularly well for him. I'm starting to think, spoiler, Andy Reid might be a really good play caller.
yeah.
Probably has something to do with it. Also, like this, David says, I'm marveling at the job John's don't boiling his nuggets. What?
Yeah, I was supposed to say done. He corrected and said done boiling. The job that John has done boiling his nuggets.
Gotcha. Thank you. I just want to make sure. Yeah,
There's a lot of conversation about what exactly that means earlier.
No, you know, I don't even remember where I heard that. I think my dad said it one time, and it's just kind of stuck. Let's see. Also, Heartbroken Hog says, John, I've had plenty of, we were talking about Bevo and Uga. He's like, I've had plenty of cows be friends with cats and dogs, ran on Norland farms. Yeah, okay, that last part is the whole difference.
Like, yes, part of the story.
Yeah, not just meeting for the very first time and domesticated animals. Like, no, that's not the way it is. Angel says, soft shirts make my man nips hard. Good. That's why you need to buy some Rhoback, because everybody loves to see some hard nips. You got to blast them a little bit over there. They're good for it.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Jeff says, what's going on right now is the big reason why Saban retired. He knew it was going to get out of hand. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think he probably wasn't thrilled about the playing field being extremely level.
Yeah.
And also, it's not like he was that far away from retiring. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, he even said it himself. Like, when they lost that national title game, he started to realize this isn't really the world I want to live in long term.
Because let's be honest, guys. I mean, come on. Nick Saban in Alabama, they weren't paying a dime to any of these players before NIL. They were just coming because they loved the Tide. You know, there was none of that going on. Yeah, that's what I think it's more about, is not the playing field being even. So, yeah, that's rough. And finally, we'll go to Ben. He says, why would they take a high school quarterback and tell him we wouldn't take anyone else, then go get Madden? I still haven't gotten to the point where I can pronounce his name, but it says, make the Kutas thing make more sense.
Okay, so I started this not because of the last sentence. Like, there's no correlation there. But I thought that we were going to bring this up with
yes,
Grayson Wilson after he signed, being asked about, hey, they got another quarterback, and turns out maybe he was maybe not expecting that before he put ink on paper. So,
I mean, he point blank said, I was told they were not going to take another quarterback, which, you know, we talked about is a very common thing. You don't really see two quarterbacks, especially like two ones that you really like, being taken in the same class. That's interesting. I did love the whole thing.
It's a business, but
yeah, I love the last sentence of makes the Kutas thing make more sense. That's like being like, oh, I mean, Braylon Russell, I mean, he had that hamstring injury. He was questionable. Now I understand why 9/11 happened. I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Why would that affect the junior guard? But no, like
Pittman lied to the quarterback about bringing in another quarterback. Therefore, he lied to Kutas, but no, it was actually the other way around.
Right. Well, I guess that's the point he's trying to make, is like, yeah, these coaches lie to players, and like, look, that's perfectly fine and all that, but it is quite interesting. Yeah. And also, it's like, I'd love to have sympathy for the players. I do. And I, you know, I think that's messed up. If they told him they weren't going to bring in a quarterback and they brought another one, that sucks. But also, it's kind of just comes with the territory. And he even said it, Grayson, who was being interviewed there yesterday, like, he even said it where he's like, look, I knew I was going to have to beat out guys. I knew that there's going to be competitions. They're just trying to build the best roster they can. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. It's like this new wave of college football. You don't really have time to be in your feelings.
Mm-mm. You want to like it, love it, or hate it, but it's the way it is. It's a business, it's just a business, and they're going to treat it as such. So, well, that about wraps up for us, guys. Any final thoughts before we get out of here on Inside Arkansas Live?
Yes, they have evacuated the San Francisco Zoo and moved all the animals to enclosures and higher ground because there was a earthquake in California, and now they have a tsunami warning.
Oh, wow.
That doesn't seem very good. Jeez, how do you evacuate the animals? What do you do?
I mean, Noah did it.
I think it's probably pretty similar.
Yes, I mean, two at a time is what I was told.
But seriously, I mean, I just saw that as you were getting ready to ask that question. I was like, what the heck is really going on here? But yeah, I guess a pretty strong earthquake over there, and there's a tsunami warning. I mean, you see those, across the globe, over in Asia and everything. That's some scary, scary stuff. So I don't know what the outlook is over there, but have my eye on it. That's it's crazy.
That's scary. Well, I mean, I'm not going to go too much into it, but still, after yesterday and seeing a person assassinated, I was all over the place on Twitter and everything. The CEO of United Healthcare or whatever it is. Sheesh, man, people are crazy out there. It's really, really crazy stuff. So, but Andrew, any final thoughts, or was that a good one for you?
My final thought is just pull up with us tonight. We're going to be hanging out at the Leroy. Yeah. Pull up in person if you want, but also pull up on the stream. I imagine, I'm just going to go out on a limb and say there will probably be some more portal, some type of news in the next 6 hours that we will be able to react to, talk about, and we're just going to continue to, talk about every angle of this Arkansas football, basketball, and baseball program. So pull up with us. I always say this, though. The Leroy streams are your time. If you have like a random question that you want to ask and maybe we overlooked it in the chat today or whatever, that is your time to do it, because we're usually just kind of riffing, hanging out, and talking and, just shooting the shit. So that's your time to ask us that off-the-wall question, and we'd greatly appreciate it. So clear your schedule. Hang out with us tonight.
Perfectly said. And that'll do it for us. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into Inside Arkansas Live. Be sure to subscribe to us here at Inside Arkansas on our YouTube page. Be sure to follow us along on all of our social media at Inside Arkansas, and also check out our website for all the latest and greatest up-to-date information on the Razorbacks at InsideArkansas.com. So for Andrew Ellis and Curtis Wilkerson, I'm John Neighbors. Same sports show, same sports channel tomorrow at noon. We'll see you tonight at the Leroy on Dixon Street starting at 7 o'clock. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. We'll see you then.